My name is Brooke Harrison. I am 32 years old. 4 years ago, my older sister secretly drained money from the joint business account we had built together and convinced everyone I was the one making bad choices with our shared event planning venture. Now we sat crammed into attorney Stephen Lang's office in our suburban Madison neighborhood with my parents on one side and my son on the other. My older sister slid the thick stack of transfer papers across the polished table with that familiar cold smile and told me I needed to sign everything over right then so she could finally fix what I had supposedly ruined. My stomach twisted, but my mind stayed ice cold. After 11 years of carrying her weight, while she took the credit, I was ready to let her believe she had finally won it all. If you have ever had a sister who smiled to your face while taking everything behind your back, drop a like and tell me in the comments what your sibling did that changed how you saw family forever. I read every single one. I kept my face neutral the way I had practiced in the mirror for months. The room smelled like fresh coffee and old law books, and the only sound was the faint hum of the air conditioner fighting the late spring humidity outside. My older sister leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms like she already owned the room. Come on, just sign it. You know the business needs someone strong at the helm, and we all know that has never been you. Her voice was sweet enough for my mother and my father to nod along, but the edge underneath it cut straight through me. My mother reached over and patted my hand like I was still a little girl who needed comforting. My father cleared his throat but said nothing. My son shifted in his seat, eyes darting between us, clearly confused who to believe. I picked up the pen with shaking fingers the way a truly broken person would. I just want what is best for my son and for the family to stop fighting, I whispered, making my voice crack on purpose. My older sister's eyes lit up with triumph. Attorney Stephen Lang cleared his throat and slid the liability disclosure addendum across the table next to the main agreement. Just so everyone is clear, she is relinquishing all claims to the business assets the client lists the two vans and the storage unit. In exchange, she receives a cash settlement of $45,000 and we move on. My older sister barely glanced at the second page before waving her hand. She does not need to read all that. We are family. She trusts me. The words landed like a slap. I signed my name slowly on every line they put in front of me. My husband, Ryan Ellis, sat beside me, squeezing my knee under the table in silent support. He had no idea about the irrevocable trust I had created for my son or the 4 years of secret records I kept in a safe deposit box 2 towns over. Nobody did. Not even my coworker Olivia Grant, who had noticed my older sister's car parked outside my house at odd hours and warned me something felt off. As we stepped out into the parking lot, my cousin Derek pulled me aside near his truck. You sure about this? Your older sister looked way too happy. I just shrugged and told him I was tired and ready to move on. Inside, though, my pulse was racing. The trap was set. All I had to do was wait for the creditors to start calling her the way they had been calling the business line for months. 2 weeks later, the first crack appeared when my older sister called me at 7 in the morning, her voice sharp. What the hell is this notice from the bank? They say the business loan is now in my name only and they want a payment by Friday. I kept my tone innocent. I thought that was what you wanted. You said you were taking everything. She laughed, but it sounded forced. This is not funny. You were supposed to help me fix it, not dump it all on me. That was when I knew the first part of my plan was working, but I also felt the first real twist of fear. My older sister had never sounded scared before. The following Sunday at our family barbecue, my Aunt Patricia had everyone over to her backyard like she did every spring. My older sister arrived late carrying a tray of catered appetizers from a competitor just to show off. She pulled my mother aside near the grill where I was flipping burgers and I overheard every word. Mom, I think Brooke has been hiding things from us for years. The business debts are way worse than she let on, and now I am stuck with all of it because she played the victim in that lawyer's office. My mother's voice dropped to a whisper, but I still caught it. We will talk to your father. Maybe we need to adjust the college fund we set up for your son. Your older sister has the business to run now. My stomach dropped. They were already turning. Olivia Grant showed up later with a bottle of lemonade and a worried look. She had become my rock at the accounting firm where I worked part-time. You okay? Your older sister has been texting the whole group chat about how stressed she is and how you walked away from everything. I forced a smile and told her it was fine, but inside, the second wave of dread hit. If my older sister was already spinning the narrative to our friends and family, the isolation was starting faster than I planned. I needed to stay strong for my son, but the way he was laughing at something my older sister whispered to him across the yard made my chest ache. That night, after everyone left, my husband found me in the kitchen staring at the stack of documents I had kept hidden. You have to tell me what is really going on. I saw the look on your face when your older sister was talking to our son. I almost broke and told him everything, but I stopped myself. The less he knew, the safer the trust fund stayed. I am handling it, I said quietly. Just trust me. He kissed my forehead and went to bed, but I stayed up until 2 in the morning, checking my encrypted drive one more time. Everything was still there. The 4 years of proof, the transfers, the secret credit cards and the business name, the vendor emails begging for payment. The following Monday, my older sister showed up at my front door unannounced, while my husband was at work and my son was at school. She looked exhausted, her usual perfect makeup smudged. We need to talk. The vendors are calling me nonstop. One of them threatened to sue if I do not pay the $85,000 we owe for the last 3 events. I invited her in and poured her a glass of water the way a good sister would. I thought you had it under control. You said you were the leader. Her eyes narrowed. You knew, didn't you? You let me walk into that lawyer's office blind. She was starting to suspect, but she still did not have proof. I played dumb and told her I was sorry things were hard. She left, slamming the door so hard the pictures on the wall rattled. By the end of that week, the pressure was everywhere. My father called and asked if I could help my older sister with one small payment just to tide her over. My mother stopped by with a casserole and casually mentioned how proud they were of my older sister for stepping up. My son came home from school one afternoon and asked why I never told him the business was in trouble. My aunt says you knew the whole time and let her take the fall. I hugged him tight and told him it was complicated, but the look in his eyes told me the poison was already working. That night, I lay awake next to my husband, wondering if my plan was worth the growing distance I felt from my own son. The biggest escalation came 10 days after the lawyer meeting when the first lawsuit papers arrived at my older sister's house. She forwarded them to me with a single text. Fix this, or I tell everyone what you did. I stared at the message for a long time. The trap was closing exactly as I planned, but the family was closing in on me faster. My older sister was not going down quietly, and I could feel the social exile starting. Friends from the old neighborhood group chat were suddenly too busy to reply. Even Olivia sounded hesitant on our lunch break call the next day. People are saying things. Maybe you should just help her out a little. I ended the call and sat in my car in the parking lot of the accounting firm, heart pounding. The 4 years of patience, the secret trust, the careful planning, it was all supposed to set me free. Instead, I was watching my family turn against me, one careful conversation at a time. My older sister had always been good at that, good at making herself the victim and me the problem. I drove home that evening with the radio off and the weight of what might happen next pressing down on me. If I fought back now, I risked losing my son completely. If I stayed quiet, I risked losing everything I had protected. The choice was coming faster than I expected, and I had no idea which way it would break me. The next morning, the text from my older sister lit up my phone before I even made it to the kitchen for coffee. Family meeting tonight at Mom and Dad's. 6 sharp. Do not be late and do not bring your husband. This is between us. My stomach knotted tighter than it had in the lawyer's office. I knew what this was. She was rallying the troops, pulling every string she had to make me look like the villain who had sabotaged our event planning business from the inside. I deleted the message and told my husband I had a late client file to review at the accounting firm so he would not ask questions. By 5:30 that evening, I was pulling into my parents' driveway in suburban Madison, the same house where my older sister and I had grown up fighting over the last cookie and the bigger bedroom. My Aunt Patricia's car was already there along with my cousin Derek's truck. Inside, the living room smelled like my mother's famous meatloaf, and the tension was thick enough to choke on. My older sister sat in the big recliner like it was a throne, her legs crossed and her phone face up on the armrest. She did not even wait for me to sit down. We need to talk about the business. She started, her voice dripping with that fake concern she used whenever she wanted an audience on her side. The vendors are threatening to sue me personally now. $85,000 in unpaid invoices, and the bank is calling me every day about the loan you co signed 4 years ago. I thought we agreed you were stepping back, not leaving me holding the bag. My mother nodded from the couch, her hand resting on my father's knee. Your older sister has been working so hard to keep things afloat. Maybe you could help with one of the payments just until she gets on her feet. It is the least you can do after everything she has done for the family. My father cleared his throat but stayed quiet the way he always did when my older sister took charge. That silence stung more than any direct accusation. I felt my son shift beside me on the love seat, his eyes fixed on the carpet. He had come straight from baseball practice and still had grass stains on his jeans. Mom, my aunt says the business is failing because of decisions you made before you signed the papers. He said quietly, not looking at me. The words landed like a punch. My older sister had been texting him again, filling his head with half truths while I was at work. I squeezed his shoulder, trying to keep my voice steady. It is more complicated than that. I will explain everything when you are older, I promise. My older sister leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. Explain it now. Tell everyone how you moved money around for years and then played the helpless little sister in Stephen Lang's office. I have messages from 3 different vendors saying you were the one who promised them payment dates you never kept. She held up her phone, waving it like evidence, even though I knew the dates she was talking about were from events she had booked without checking the calendar I kept. My cousin Derek shifted his weight from one foot to the other. Maybe we should all calm down. Brooke looks like she has not slept in days. But my older sister shot him a look that shut him up fast. Stay out of it, Derek. This is between sisters. My Aunt Patricia, who had been quiet up until then, set her coffee cup down with a soft clink. Girls, your grandmother left that business seed money to both of you. She would hate to see it torn apart like this. My older sister laughed, but there was no warmth in it. Grandma also said the strong one should lead, and we all know who that is. You have always been better at the details, the filing, the boring stuff. I am the face of the company. That is why I need the assets, and you need to stop pretending you are the victim here. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I glanced down under the table and saw a new email from the bank. The subject line read, Final Notice. Personal liability transfer confirmed. My older sister must have seen my face change because she smiled wider. Something wrong? Or is that just another bill you're hoping I will magically fix? I slipped the phone back into my pocket, my pulse hammering. The liability addendum had done its job, but now the creditors were moving faster than I expected. If I told her the truth right then, the whole plan could unravel. If I stayed quiet, my family would keep turning against me, one careful conversation at a time. My mother stood up and started clearing plates, even though no one had eaten much. Let us not ruin dinner with all this talk. You can write your older sister a check for $20,000 to cover the most urgent vendor. It is only fair. You still have that nice settlement from the lawyer and your part-time job at the accounting firm. Your older sister has the entire business to rebuild. My father finally spoke, his voice low. Your mother is right. Family helps family. The words felt like a door slamming shut. They were choosing sides without even hearing mine. My son looked between us, his 13-year-old face torn, and I felt the distance between us stretch wider than ever. The meeting dragged on another 40 minutes, with my older sister listing every expense she claimed I had caused. My Aunt Patricia tried once more to suggest mediation, but my older sister shut that down fast. No more lawyers. We handle this as family. When it finally ended, I walked my son to the car, my husband waiting in the driveway like I had asked him to. My husband took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug, but I could not tell him the full truth yet. The trust fund for my son was still safe, but my reputation inside my own family was crumbling faster than the business ever had. 3 days later, the next blow came in the form of a certified letter delivered to my front door. It was from one of the biggest vendors threatening to sue both of us unless the full $120,000 in outstanding invoices was paid within 10 business days. My older sister forwarded it to me with a single line. Your move, little sister. Or do I tell my son the real reason his college fund might disappear? I stared at the message until the words blurred. The isolation was complete now. Friends from our old event planning circle had stopped replying to my texts. Even my cousin sent a short message saying he was staying out of it to keep the peace. That evening, I sat at the kitchen table with Olivia Grant after she had stopped by unannounced with takeout. She had become my only real ally, the one person who believed me when I hinted at the 4 years of quiet preparation. You cannot keep carrying this alone, she said, pushing a container of fried rice toward me. Your older sister is turning everyone against you. I heard her on the phone with your mother yesterday at the grocery store. She was saying you were always jealous, and that is why you let the debts pile up. I pushed the food away, my appetite gone. The thought of my mother listening to that, without defending me, made my chest ache in a way no bill collector ever could. My son came downstairs, then backpack slung over one shoulder. My aunt picked me up from practice today. She said, "You are too busy with your new job to help with the business stuff anymore." His voice was flat, but the hurt was there. I wanted to tell him everything right. Then the hidden debts, the secret trust, the 4 years I had waited for my older sister to overplay her hand. But the words stuck in my throat. If I spoke now and she found out the trust existed, she might try to fight for it in court, and I could lose my son in the process. So I hugged him instead and told him I loved him more than anything. He hugged me back, but it felt shorter than usual, like he was already pulling away. The following weekend, my older sister escalated again, this time in public. She posted a long update on the old business social media account, the one we had both managed. The caption read, "Sometimes family lets you down, but I am grateful for the chance to rebuild stronger. Thank you to everyone who has reached out with support during this difficult transition." The comments poured in from clients and friends we had worked with for years. Most of them sided with her without knowing a single fact. My phone started buzzing with concerned messages from people I had not spoken to in months. One of them was from a former client named Carla, who asked if I was okay because my older sister had told her I had walked away with all the money. I called my older sister that night, my hands shaking as I held the phone. "Take the post down. This is not how we fix things." She laughed softly, the sound sharp and satisfied. "Oh, you still do not get it. I am not fixing anything. I am winning. And if you do not help me with that vendor payment by Monday, I will make sure every single person in this town knows exactly what kind of sister you really are." The line went dead before I could respond. I sat there in the dark kitchen staring at the screen until my husband came downstairs and asked if everything was all right. I told him it was, but inside, I felt the walls closing in. The pressure kept building through the next week like a storm I could not outrun. My father left a voicemail asking me to reconsider helping my older sister with at least part of the vendor bill. My mother sent a text with a picture of my son at baseball practice captioned, "He misses the old family business days when you two worked together." Even my Aunt Patricia called once, sounding hesitant. "Maybe just a small gesture. Your older sister is really struggling." I listened to each message, feeling more and more like the outsider in my own life. The business I had helped build for 11 years was now a weapon my older sister was using to isolate me completely. Olivia Grant met me for lunch on Thursday, her face serious across the booth at our usual diner. She had brought along a new contact, a financial advisor named Marcus Reed, who worked with small businesses in Madison. Marcus listened quietly while I gave him the bare minimum details without revealing the trust. If the liability transfer is already filed, your older sister is on the hook for everything. But family pressure like this can get ugly fast. You might want to consider a no contact boundary before it affects your son more than it already has. The advice made sense, but the thought of cutting ties completely with my older sister, my parents, my whole support system made my chest tighten with fear. That fear turned into something sharper 2 days later when my older sister showed up at my workplace unannounced. She walked straight into the accounting firm lobby during my lunch break, her heels clicking on the tile like she owned the place. Olivia tried to intercept her, but my older sister waved her off. "I need to speak to my sister right now. It is a family emergency." She pulled me into the small conference room and shut the door. The bank froze the remaining business account this morning. $160,000 in outstanding credit line, and they want my personal guarantee, or they go after the house I just put an offer on. You're going to help me, or I swear I will tell my son the trust fund you think is so secret is actually still marital property from when you were married to your husband before. My blood ran cold. How did she know about the trust I had been so careful? The room seemed to tilt for a second, and I gripped the back of a chair to steady myself. My older sister smiled that same cold smile from the lawyer's office. You are not the only one who can keep secrets. I have my ways. Now, are you going to do the right thing, or do I start making calls? I swallowed hard and met her eyes. I am not giving you another dime. The papers we signed in Stephen Lang's office made the business yours. All of it. The debts, the loans, the lawsuits. I walked away with $45,000, and that is it. My voice stayed steady even though my heart hammered against my ribs. My older sister's smile faded into something colder, sharper. You really think that protects you? I already talked to my son this morning. Told him the truth about how his mother let the family business burn so she could hide money in a trust that should have helped all of us. She stepped closer, her perfume, the same one she had worn to every client meeting we ever booked together. I have every right. He is my nephew, and he deserves to know his mother is the reason his aunt is drowning in $1,400,000 of debt. Sign a check for $60,000 today, or I call every family member and tell them you planned this from the start. I will make sure my son never looks at you the same way again. I stared at her, the woman who had been my older sister for 32 years, the one I had covered for time after time, the one who had drained the business account 4 years ago and smiled while I fixed it behind the scenes. Now she stood here threatening my relationship with my 13-year-old son, like it was just another vendor invoice. My phone buzzed on the table, a text from my husband. Our son seems upset after practice. Everything okay? The words blurred. My older sister glanced at the screen and laughed softly. See, even your husband is starting to wonder. Help me or lose them all. The choice sat in front of me like a loaded gun. Pay her and admit defeat or refuse and watch my family turn me into the villain forever. I thought about the irrevocable trust sitting safe in the bank, the $280,000 from my old 401k, and the $160,000 from our late grandmother that I had guarded for my son's future. If I fought her in court now, she would drag my son through it. He would hear every ugly detail. He would hear how I had waited 4 years to let her take the fall, and he was already pulling away. One more push, and I could lose him completely. I reached for my purse with shaking fingers. Fine, $60,000. But this is the last time. After this, we are done. No more family meetings, no more texts to my son, no more posts throwing me under the bus. My older sister's eyes lit up with pure satisfaction. She watched me write the check right there on the conference table, her heel tapping like she had already won. Smart choice, little sister. Maybe you finally learned your place. She snatched the check before the ink dried and folded it into her designer bag, the same way she used to pocket client tips while I cleaned up after events. I walked out of that room feeling smaller than I had in 11 years of building the business with her. Olivia Grant met me in the lobby, her face full of concern. She had been hovering outside the whole time, ready to step in if things got worse. What happened? You look like you just lost everything. I could not even answer her. The weight of the $60,000 I had just handed over sat heavy in my chest. It was money I had scraped together from my part-time job at the accounting firm, money I had planned to use for my son's braces, and a small emergency fund. Now it was gone. My older sister had it, and she would use it to pay down just enough debt to keep the wolves at bay while she kept playing the victim. 2 weeks passed in a blur of silent dinners and short answers from my son. He barely looked at me anymore. My older sister had kept her word about the post, but she had replaced it with private messages to every relative and old client. My mother called once to say how relieved she was that I had finally helped my older sister. It is what family does. You always were the detail-oriented one. She is the leader. My father sent a text with a single thumbs-up emoji like that made everything right. Even my Aunt Patricia stopped by with the casserole and a sad smile. Your older sister is turning things around now thanks to you. Maybe this can bring you two closer again. Closer, the word tasted like ash. My husband tried to talk to me one night after my son went to bed, but I could not tell him the full truth. I had to give her the money to protect our son, I whispered instead. He held me, but I could feel the distance growing there, too. My older sister had not stopped. She started inviting my son to weekend warehouse cleanouts, telling him stories about how I had let the business fail on purpose. He came home one Sunday with new sneakers she had bought him, and a look in his eyes that said he believed her version more than mine. The final blow came on a rainy Thursday evening when my older sister showed up at my front door again, this time with my mother in tow. They stood on the porch, my mother holding an umbrella, my older sister looking triumphant. "We need to discuss the trust fund," my older sister said without even a hello. "My son told me about it. He deserves half. It came from Grandma, and we are family." My mother nodded along. "Your older sister is right, honey. After everything she has been through, it is only fair." I stood there in my own doorway, rain dripping from the eaves, feeling the last piece of my plan crumble. The trust was irrevocable, legally protected, but fighting them now would mean lawyers and court dates, and my son caught in the crossfire again. I had already given $60,000. I had already watched my reputation turn to dust inside my own family. If I said no, they would keep poisoning my son until he chose her side completely. So I made the painful choice. I will transfer $30,000 into an account for my son that my older sister can access for his needs. I said, my voice flat and defeated. But that is it. After this, I am done helping. Done with the family meetings, done pretending we are okay. My older sister's smile returned full force. "See, Mom, I told you she would do the right thing eventually." My mother patted my arm like I was a child who had finally behaved. They left without another word, and I closed the door and slid down to the floor right there in the hallway. My son found me like that 20 minutes later. He did not hug me. He just stood there and said, "My aunt said, you finally admitted you messed up the business. Is that true?" The question broke something inside me. I did not know was still breakable. I told him no, it was not true, but the doubt in his eyes told me the damage was already done. My older sister had won. She kept the business, or what was left of it. She kept the family's loyalty. She kept my son's trust, and I kept the loneliness that came with protecting what little I could. I never got the clean break I planned for 4 years. Instead, I got this half-life where I still saw my family at holidays and smiled for my son's sake, while my older sister posted pictures of her comeback events with captions that never mentioned me. My husband stayed, but our conversations grew shorter. Olivia Grant tried to stay close, but even she was eventually stopped asking for details once the rumors spread to our office. I kept my job at the accounting firm, and I kept the remaining trust money safe, but the victory I had waited for never arrived. My older sister never faced the full collapse I had prepared for her. She spun the debts as temporary setbacks and found new investors who believed her version of events. The lawsuit settled for less than I expected, and she moved on like nothing had happened. I was the one left carrying the weight of the $60,000 and the $30,000 I had given up. I was the one watching my son grow more distant every month. I chose the lesser evil to protect him, and in the end, I still lost pieces of him anyway. Sometimes late at night, I sit in the kitchen and think about the woman I was 4 years ago, the one who thought patience and quiet planning would finally set me free. I was wrong. My older sister taught me that some family bonds are stronger than any legal document or hidden trust. They are stronger than truth, and the price of walking away is higher than I ever imagined. Thank you for listening to my story. It still hurts to tell, but maybe sharing it helps someone else see the warning signs before it is too late. If you have ever had to choose between protecting your child and protecting yourself, what did you do? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one, and you are not alone in this.